Hey everyone, welcome back to Coffee with Craner. I have an exciting episode. So today we're going to be talking all about the mortgage industry, something that I'm very passionate about. But we actually have the CEO and co-founder of one of the companies that I'm a part of, DLC Group of Companies, which includes Dominion Lending Centers, Mortgage Center Canada, Mortgage Architects, and Newton Connectivity Systems. And this brokerage has over 9,000 mortgage professionals. I'm very, very honored to be one of those individuals working for Gary's company. We're going to be talking all about how it started and where it's headed. Gary, thanks for being here.
Lyndon, it's great to connect. How are you?
I'm great. It's almost Christmas, so
Yeah,
just counting down the days.
yeah, a little bit of downtime for you. Obviously, it's going to be nice for all of us this time of year. Spend time with family. So I'm looking forward to the next week as well.
Absolutely. Now, Gary, this is probably the first time you've heard of the show. So every show I ask a question about coffee. Where out in Vancouver, that's where you're located today, is your favorite place for coffee?
You know what? I hit Starbucks every morning. I kind of go to the gym 4 days a week. And my routine is as soon as I finish the gym, I head to Starbucks for about 30 minutes. And I know some of the guys there. And I'm simple, easy. I'm a grande Americano decaf with oat milk and Splenda, and that's my routine. And I've tried the other. I was at Tim Hortons for years, and I sort of tried Starbucks, and I've been there since.
And you said that was a simple order.
Yeah, well, that's fairly simple for me. Yeah, grande Americano decaf. Yeah, that's true.
Good. Only stirred twice, and
right, exactly. Yeah.
Has to have a sleeve on it. So to start off, could you walk us through how did DLC Group of Companies? I mean, you're hitting close to 70 billion in funded mortgages this year in 2024. It's grown quite significantly since you started it. How did this all take place?
I'll give you kind of the short version so I don't bore you or any of your listeners, but I was a very entrepreneurial guy from a very young age. I created 2 businesses before I started Dominion Lending Centers that I grew nationally. Both were sold to public companies, larger entities. And I was a pretty young guy. I was in my early 30s, and I was spending time in Southern California. And I had a conversation with my neighbor one afternoon over a cold Corona. And he was a mortgage broker in the US. And he said to me that 75% of all US mortgage loans were generated through a mortgage broker down there. And I remember thinking that was an alarming number because, the US market is made up of hundreds of different, banks and trust companies and credit providers. There's like numerous in every state. So I remember thinking, wow, that's really high penetration. And that night, another thought occurred to me. Whatever happens in the US normally transitions and happens eventually up in Canada, whether that's technology or music or, restaurant chains or fashion or fabric or, we, eventually sort of follow their lead. Sometimes it's a year later, sometimes it's 5 years later, but what happens in those markets usually transitions. So when I came back, I was thinking about that. And my business partner today is a gentleman by the name of Chris Kayett. And he was a mortgage broker, largely just to cater to his real estate offices that he had back then. So I asked him about the business and thought it was fascinating and thought there was a real opportunity to build a brand in Canada. So when I got back from the US, we started doing some homework over the next 12 months, investigating, the space in Canada and what was available to mortgage professionals. I mean, I knew the value of a mortgage professional was super important to Canadians. I knew that we, could offer them choice, competition around pricing. So they got lowest mortgage rates, convenience, expertise, advice. So, that's where it started. Had that conversation, came back, did some homework, and thought that we could become the number one mortgage brand in the country. And, 19 years later, Lyndon, we've done that.
Yes, absolutely. And now many entrepreneurs go through multiple businesses that they're starting up. Some succeed, some fail. What was your first kick at the can?
In terms of business?
Yes.
Oh my God. I mean, was always, pretty entrepreneurial as a kid. I was one of those guys that would go out and get 4 jobs in a day, at 15 or 16 years old when I'd knock doors. And, my driver for me primarily is for a lot of my early years, I was raised by a single mother and she was busy, and kind of worked 2 jobs, Safeway and cleaning houses on weekends. And she really admired hard work. So for me to get her attention and her validation, really, in my eyes, was to become a really hard worker. So that's what I did. So I had a lot of businesses young. I started off, you can believe it or not, with a corner store. It was a corner store in a rural market in British Columbia. And, I was that guy that sold them their milk and cheese and butter. Then I guess the first business that I really succeeded on is I started a manufacturing company, and I built wall mount cigarette machines, if you can believe it. And I put those machines in every bar and nightclub, cabaret, and casino sort of in BC and Alberta. And I got the attention of the large tobacco companies who wanted to, be in these businesses. So I sold my first business to Rothman, Spencer and Hedges, going back, long time ago, 24, 25 years ago. And to answer your question, I think our failures, and I think, those early days of getting through, learning the business, become foundational to who we become. And our pain in the past really becomes our power in the future. So that was my first successful business, but I had all kinds of, things along the way that, I failed at that were just great learning lessons.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely. And now when you first entered this space, the mortgage space, what was it like? What was the perception of mortgage brokers? Was this what you were trying to do completely new at that time?
Yeah, it's a good question. It was very hard. Us coming into the industry with no, sort of history in the industry and no background. Everyone's nice to you that first year. And then as you become more successful and their agents are leaving their companies and joining your companies, you go from the darling to the devil very quickly. And then everyone hates you and, they're not cheering for you any longer. They're cheering against you. Because, in business, when you're doing a really good job and you're getting scale, you're growing, somebody else is shrinking, right? Because, the business is transitional and agents are leaving, maybe where they're at currently and coming over to join, your company. So, just gaining credibility and proving to the market that you can do it and you know what you're talking about and you're committed and you're going to be here, long term, trying to convince them of those things that are so important to build credibility was hard. We were ridiculed. We, were made fun of. We, very quickly became, a company in the early days everyone loved to hate because we were growing and we were doing good work and we were delivering our promises. But like any entrepreneur, those first few years in business, it gets easier, and you get thicker skin, but they're very difficult. There's no such thing as work-life balance as an entrepreneur when you're building something. You are thinking about it 24/7, 365, like holidays. There's no holidays, right? You work up to 4:00 on Christmas Eve and you come back on the 27th and you work all the way through. So, looking back now, it was extraordinarily difficult. You have to have really thick skin in order to, be successful. But, I wouldn't look back and change a thing. It defined who we were or who we are. And, is a memory that's, very near and dear to my heart.
Was there, when you first started, an aha moment or something when the light bulb went on and you're like, okay, this is going to work?
This is how I started, but I took the Mortgage Brokers Association of British Columbia, the annual roster. They used to have a book that they used to mail out to mortgage brokers. And the very first day, my very first call was to the first name in that book. And his name wasn't Al Abbott, but I'm going to pretend it was Al Abbott, right? It was started with an A. And I remember calling him saying, "Hi, Al, it's Gary Mauris from Dominion Lending Centers. How are you?" He'd go, "I'm good. I'm fine. Thank you very much. Al, I'm sure you've heard of us." Right? "No, actually, Gary, I haven't heard of you." "Well, you're going to, because we're going to be the number one mortgage broker company in the country. I would love to sit down and show you what we're doing. We've really created some great tools so I can make your job easier and help you do more business." And really that was, sort of the foundation of the business and how we, and how we started, right? And it was that simple. And, that first year we added 400 mortgage brokers. I added them 400 personally, brand new to the business. But, as I was saying a few minutes ago, you really have to convince them that you believe in what you're doing, and you have to convince them that you have the tools and technologies and the staying power. I'm not sure if I answered your question. I kind of got sidetracked there, but that's.
No, you did. So this Al Albert that you mentioned, what do you think got him or her hooked? Because you were calling at that time, and the business was very, very new. It was new, right? He was probably your first broker.
Yeah.
So you had no backing. How did you?
It's a good question. I think honestly, in those early days, it's passion. People want to follow passionate people, right? People like authenticity. And I think we were very passionate, and I'm still incredibly passionate at what we do. And, today we have 9,000 agents across the country. So, you're all brand new, right? You have to convince people, and, you want people to believe that I believe in this team or this gentleman, running this organization. And, I bet on him to be a winner, and people will follow that energy and that passion. I say to people all the time that, authenticity and passion are way more important than, IQ, right? There's a lot of smart people out there, but, having people believe that you believe so strongly in what you're going to build and create, and having people, buy into that, is amazing. It's very valuable to your business in the early days. It's, even as a brand new mortgage professional, when you really are invested in your customers, and they know that you really care, and they know that you're working to give them the very best advice, and you're a smart guy and you've done your homework, they'll choose you over somebody else who's got a lot of years experience, because they know and they believe that you'll be there for them, and you're never going to steer in the wrong direction. And I think that's, sort of the way we thought about things and still think about things today.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the company is quite big. You said the number one mortgage brokerage in Canada.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's been a hell of a journey for us. We're now a publicly traded company. We have, more than a $600 million market cap. We have 9,000 agents across the country. We're growing double digit every single year. You'd think you'd slow down, but we continue to grow. Mm-hmm. We originate more mortgage loans, more home loans in Canada than any other Canadian bank. So we do more mortgages per year through our broker distribution and our brands than the Royal Bank of Canada. So, from humble beginnings, from me making those simple, dials 19 years ago in a small 400 square foot office in a real estate, company in small town British Columbia. It's something we're really proud of. And, we've never lost those humble beginnings. I wake up every single day, and the question I ask myself is, how do I bring more value to the Canadian consumer so that we can create competitive tension and get them the best pricing and products that work for them? And, and how do I bring more value to my mortgage professionals and my mortgage, agents in every province in the country?
Did you see it getting to this scale?
Listen, no. The short answer is no, I didn't. I thought we'd be really successful because I was, I'm wired in such a way where I just didn't allow myself any negative thought where I thought we wouldn't win, we wouldn't succeed. I never thought the industry, the amount of Canadians would really start to understand how valuable it is to work with a mortgage professional. I mean, if you look at markets that are similar to us, and the two that are very close in terms of size and the way the banking works would be Great Britain and Australia. I mean, man, they as much as 80% of their loans are now done through mortgage brokers in those countries. And today it's about, kind of 45%, 50% in Canada, depending on the numbers that you're using. And I think that we have a long ways to go. I mean, why wouldn't you use a mortgage professional to get your mortgage today? We're going to look at the pricing from, all the lenders right across the country. There's no cost in 99% of the transactions that we do. We're given expert, unbiased advice. Our brokers don't, earn a fee unless, the customer accepts the product and the pricing that you have, selected for them. It's really unbiased expert advice. So we think that's just going to continue to grow. All the banks, or the vast majority of the banks, are now working in our channel. And from a consumer's perspective, I mean, they might walk into their bank once every 4 or 5 years and look for a mortgage. We send those banks billions of dollars of business every single year. So they're very good partners to us, and it makes us very competitive. And so I'm extraordinarily optimistic about our business going forward. And we provide mortgages for everyone. Right? Dominion Lending Centers group of companies provides mortgages for everyone, and we'll save, our customers time, energy, money, stress. Mm-hmm. Customers don't want to make a mistake. They don't want to walk into the bank and have one choice and go, oh my God, I paid too much, or I got the wrong product, or now I'm triggering a huge fee down the road. And that's really the problems that we solve.
Yes, I agree. Now, for you, growing this company, many successful entrepreneurs had a mentor in their life. Was there somebody that you followed in their footsteps? Was it a relative? Was there anyone that was guiding you along the way? Or is it really trial by fire, you could say?
So I'm a huge proponent of personal development. I subscribe to, a lot of different sort of ways for personal development. So I've had many mentors over the years. Mm-hmm. You can't see
Darren Daly.
Yeah, Darren Hardy is a very dear friend of mine, best CEO mentor, kind of coaches in the world. But I'm constantly reading, I'm constantly listening to podcasts. I really believe that the more open-minded you are to learning from others, those skills are transferable. Mm-hmm. So I had a mentor early on in my life that just, made me really believe anything was possible. I first fell in love in personal development when I was 17 or 18 years old. A gentleman that I knew was going to a motivational speaker that was coming to Vancouver. And he asked me, because he liked me, I thought I was a polite kid, to join him just as his guest. He had an extra ticket, and I'll never forget it. We sat right in the front row, and I listened to this guy. His name was Joe Girard back then. If you can believe it, he was the #1 car salesman in the world. And I didn't necessarily care about the business he was in. I just really liked his mentality and the way he thought. Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting there at 17 or 18 years old up front and just being transformed, just like what is possible. And his message back then was personal development, right? If you want to become better, you have to, take the steps to become better. Time doesn't get you better. Investment in yourself does. And, that turned on my light. And I remember just reading voraciously and, in the early days being involved with Anthony Robbins, Tony Robbins, and, Zig Ziglar, and, all of those people that just made me think differently and just made me think it was possible. And, explained to me that it's going to be a bumpy road. It's going to be hard and nothing's going to be easy. And I'm going to get kicked in the teeth 1,000 times. And just when it happened, being okay with it happening, because somebody told me I was going to get kicked in the teeth 1,000 times and it would get better. So Steve Jobs, huge mentor of mine. I read everything I could ever, put in front of me that was Steve Jobs related. I just liked his drive and his insatiable desire to, not be okay with this is good, be steadfast and wanting excellence. So I'm Darren Hardy. I guess you would consider a mentor of mine, a dear friend of mine. We now travel together on holiday together, and mm-hmm. He's done probably the best job I know of boiling down, and formatting, information that's easy to process for everyone.
Yes, I've really enjoyed watching his 60-second clips that come in through email. They've been very, very helpful.
DarrenDaily.com. If you're watching this podcast, subscribe to it. There's no cost. It'll get you thinking differently, and it's just like a little dose of fresh air every day.
Mm-hmm. And now 2 final questions for you, Gary, before I let you go, because I know you're extremely busy. Personal development, looking back to a younger Gary, a little Gary that is starting out many businesses. How do you think you've grown professionally?
Oh, it's remarkable. I'm not the same person I was even 5 years ago. I think that we have seasons in life, right? And I think I'm way more introspective now. I think I'm way more patient now. I was really good in that I was raised in a household where, we were just non-judgmental, right? I never, I never grew up in a household where I thought that I knew everything all the time. But I think that, to have an open mind, a beginner's mindset, to realize that you really start learning after you kind of, quote, know it all, is really of high value. So, I think from my perspective, I've become much more patient. I've become a little bit softer, a little bit more well-rounded. At 56 years old, 2 new grandchildren in the last, sort of year, I think have softened me a little bit as well. But I think that, you never sort of, stop thinking about ways that you can improve, and you keep, an open mind to new ideas. Some of my best ideas now come from, just the most random sources. I always say to people, like, a good idea is a good idea. It doesn't have to come from someone who's really smart or someone who's wealthy, or, it just comes in daily conversations, and to have an open mind for how you can improve every area of your life by having, sort of genuine conversations is of high value. I don't care if our ideas for the DLCG group of companies come from our receptionist answering the phone in the front, or our president. They both hold the same value to me. So,
Yes.
What I would sort of leave you with in terms of that question is, you're always growing, right? The day you stop growing is the day you start dying, and have that beginner's mindset, because, you're improving and getting better every single day. It doesn't matter, how old you are.
Beginner's mindset. I love that. Final question for you. And this is a selfish question for, you've seen many brokers go through your company and stick with you guys. What would be one piece of advice you would give to either, let's just do anyone in sales? What advice would you give to them?
So number one piece of advice I'd give is start, right? Like, just start, because, people go, well, in order to be successful, I have to have the perfect business card and the perfect website, and I got to get my technology okay, and I got to, get this, and I should be ready by the end of January or the end of February, or, it's going to take a little bit of time to get there. Yeah. Just start. Like pick up the phone right after this call and call somebody and tell them what you do, right? Whether you're a mortgage professional, whether you're selling tires, right? Just absolutely start. You're not going to get the perfect race car on the road, for your very first race. Your business is going to change. It's going to transition. What we thought Dominion Lending Centers would look like, today is much different than what we thought it was going to look like 19 years ago. So I think that's really important. The other thing I would say to you that I think is important, and it's, above that sort of one simple answer, but just be open all the time, open for business. It is amazing when you talk about what you're doing for a living, or what you're building, or what you're creating, or how you spend your time. Just tell everyone, have the conversations everywhere you go. And, how do you start a conversation? You start it by asking somebody what they do for a living, because what do they immediately do once they finish, and once they've answered your question, they say, well, what do you do for a living? So, now you can leverage, a lot of those conversations with social media. It's easier to stay in touch, but just really open those conversations and then value those relationships. Like I talk about databasing and creating the biggest network that you possibly can. And I don't mean sell and drive people crazy with what you just try to be a good person. Try to be responsive, try to pay attention, try to make comments on social media, try to just let them see your side of you and your life, and the business will come, right? But, really important that you sort of like nurture all those relationships, and, don't let them get too distant, and try to stay on top of them long term. And, the more raving fans that you build, and the more people that like you, the more, people will make introductions to you and open doors for you, and the easier life will become. And that itself, and just nurturing those relationships, is extraordinarily hard to do it consistently over a long period of time, but it pays extraordinary results, both in what you get out of life personally and both what you get out of life professionally.
Excellent. So procrastination kills all businesses, and tell your story because nobody else will.
100%, over and over and over.
Love it. Love it. Everyone, this is Gary Mauris, CEO and co-founder of DLC Group of Companies. Make sure to check out everything that Dominion Lending Centers has to offer. Gary, really appreciate your time and carving out a part of your day to be here.
Linda, can I say one last thing before we drop?
Yes.
And I'm extraordinarily proud of you. You've come into our business. You have done